Hi there, it's me, Matt Miller, and welcome to my Procreate demo for the piece I call Green Flame Blade. Now, it's called Green Flame Blade, obviously because he's got a green flame blade, but I would also like to point out that this is that's a cantrip from Dungeons & Dragons, and this is a new Dungeons & Dragons character. Yes, another one. This is like my, 17th Dungeons & Dragons character. I just love doing it. It gives me inspiration. Fantasy genre is very wide open, and I like it. You can choose something a little bit more playful, choose something more gritty. Yeah, you'll see me here. I'm playing with a couple of different styles. I had this idea for this character for a while now. I just wanted to make a character with a giant sword, and my wife makes fun of me for having for always drawing characters with giant swords, but there's something to it, you know. You got your guts from Berserk, you got your Garrison from Battle Chasers. It looks good, and people are drawn to it because it looks cool. Now, let's talk about the character design process a little bit here. I thought that what I wanted to do is I wanted to make I wanted to have the juxtaposition of this childlike, or at least adolescent-like, boy or young man carrying this giant-ass sword. I thought that would look kind of cool, but going through the different drawing phases, drawing the body types, and trying to come up with a good stance, it just wasn't clicking. The drawings that you're seeing on the screen, the roughs that you're seeing on the screen, actually aren't the first roughs. There were many more before this, and they were all like, your standard adolescent, cocky adolescent posing, and it just wasn't working right. Not only could I not find the right shapes, I just wasn't happy with the way it was turning out. It didn't really feel like my character or the character that I wanted to play. So ultimately, I scrapped it, but not before going through a couple more iterations, as you'll see here. So let's talk about the D&D character in of himself. So in Dungeons & Dragons, you pick a class, you pick a race, and you pick a subclass. It just depends on how your DM is running it. So usually I go with human variant, just because humans are, I'm familiar with humans, I interact with them every day, so I know how they are. But I picked a human variant because I really like the idea or the ability to choose a feat at level 1. So for this character, I chose to pick a human variant, but I chose for my feat the Magic Initiate, because I really wanted him to be very magic oriented as a fighter. He's an Eldritch Knight, so Eldritch Knight fighter. So he's automatically got magic, but with the Magic Initiate, you get to start off with magic at level 1. And I figured, hey, since this guy is gonna have this giant sword, why not try to make all my cantrips around, the sword? So, of course, they're wizard cantrips, so, Green Flame Blade, which obviously I'm showcasing here, Booming Blade, Sword Burst, and what else is there? Blade Ward. So anything that's blade themed. All right, so here is the final stance that I start working on. It just felt right. I came up with this. I was actually drawing on my iPad while I was in the dentist office, waiting for to be called back. And this pose just felt, it felt good. It felt right. It felt better than trying to, force it with a kid just leaning on a sword. This felt like, this guy is ready for action. He is battle ready. One of the things that I kind of struggled with on this piece, as you'll see later on, is the final rendering. Flats aren't that hard. Flats are pretty easy. Posing can be kind of a challenge, but once you get it down, it's not that hard to do the flats on top of it. One thing that I did struggle with when I was coming up with this pose, though, was his right hand Left hand seemed pretty easy to do, you know, it's just going around a sword. It's not that hard. But doing his right hand, I was like, do I want to have a fist, like a standard fist, or do I want to have him like kind of an open hand, you know, cupping a ball of flame, which I initially like thought was cool. Then I drew a fist, and then I tried to go back with it, and ended up going with it, and it did look cool, and it kind of went along with the green flame theme. Now, his posing, the way his sword is angled, actually gives some really good, I guess, staging of the scene, because you can see all the flames coming off of the sword. And if it was just standing upright or slung on his back, you wouldn't get to see this. So he just gets to, you know, showcase the green flames, which I think I did a pretty good job with. You know, not to toot my own horn, but toot toot. I like it. I think it looks cool. See, there you go. I was struggling with the hand. Yeah. And you'll see it a few more times I'll struggle with the hand. It just happens, right? Artist struggles. I believe now I am going to try to do the hand maybe one more time. Yeah, here we go. And finally I do get the hand, right? I like drawing hands. They're not that hard, but just sometimes it's just like, how do I draw fingers again? Oh yeah, am I gonna draw them like sausages, or am I gonna draw them like little fish sticks? Fish sticks is usually easier. So that's how I imagine drawing hands. It's not that hard. You just have to find your way of working on it. Now, as you can see here, I am working on the flats. The flats aren't that hard, you know. As I said earlier, I don't have a hard time with the flats. Obviously, you can put down a color shift with Procreate. Allows for you to shift the colors, which I do all the time. It's just something I do. As you can see with the flats, I put the head layer, or the head flat, on a separate layer than the neck and the arms. It's just a way to make it easier for me, as far as putting the AO, which isn't really an AO pass. AO stands for ambient occlusion, by the way. You'll see all the colors kind of jump around. It happens sometimes. Eventually I go with not this green, but with a more bluish, a more bluish color for the tunic and his scarf / neckerchief, whatever you want to call it. Yep, there's the final blue. One thing that I wanted to kind of emphasize was that this guy is kind of, he's rough around the edges. A way that I got away with, you know, selling that as far as the story goes is, you know, he's got a bandage on his left arm, and on his right arm he's going to have some scars, and on his pants are going to have some patches. Eventually I ditched the patches because they weren't really working quite the way I imagined they would, and sometimes that happens. Things aren't perfect. Again, tried out some different colors. One thing that I really wanted to make sure that I sold, which I think I did a pretty good job. I mean, you tell me in the comments, but the green flames on the sword. I think they look really good. Now the sword is kind of like your classic, you know, giant ass great sword. Nothing really particularly special about it, but I think the green flames emanating off of it look good. With the flats done, I move into the ambient occlusion pass. So I've been doing this a lot lately, where I'll, you know, leave off the lines and I'll just work on ambient occlusion, which is basically just, it's kind of like when objects get closer to each other, they form shadows off of each other, and then also when a object is less in direct light, there's more shadow, obviously, but that's what you try to inform when you're doing an ambient occlusion pass, is you try to inform that. It's also a little bit of a shape pass, and I use that with a multiply layer in Procreate, and then I have the color set to like a, I think it's the same color as the hilt, as that leather on the hilt. It's kind of my standard color go-to. It goes well with the skin tones. It goes well with all the other colors. And I just have it in my picks, and it's quick to choose from. So I try to do an ambient occlusion pass first, which is like an ambient / shape pass. And then after I get done doing that, then I would do my, my hard shadows. However, with this piece, I was having a lot of difficulty trying to find the right balance of, hey, is it in this green flame shadow? Like, is the shadow, is the green flame casting this light, which is causing all these, shadows on these other sides? How strong is the green flame? Is it hurting him if it's that bright? Trying to resolve some of these issues. Eventually I just decided, hey, you know what, ambient occlusion is fine, and then maybe a gradient pass going up his body, which gives it a little bit more of a graphic / cartoony nature, kind of a Samurai Jack look, if you will, which I think is really, really cool. It's kind of minimalistic, which, sometimes you just want to go with minimalistic, right? Yeah. Where was I? Oh yeah, we're talking about art. I don't have anything else to say about that, so I'll just ramble a bit about Dungeons and Dragons. I met these people, let's say maybe about a little less than a year ago, and I was like, hey, I love Dungeons and Dragons. I want to run a Dungeons and Dragons campaign. And I did, and it was really, really fun. I had never done DMing before, and it turns out it's a lot of work. I mean, it's not hard, it's fun. I enjoy world building and creating, but I had never done it before, so I didn't know what I was in for, and I don't know, it was fun. But after a bit of, being the DM for so long, I kind of wanted to play again. So I told one of the people that I played with, Allie, I was like, hey, if I kind of want to play for the next game. Like, we played my campaign all the way through. It was very Legend of Zelda inspired, because I was really getting on that Breath of the Wild kick, and I was seeing trailers for the next Breath of the Wild, and also Link to the Past, not Link to the Past, Link's Awakening, and I just submitted my art for my buddy Mike Henry's Zelda redesign challenge. So I was like, yeah, Legend of Zelda. So it was a very Legend of Zelda-esque campaign. But anyways, after that was done, I was like, hey, Allie, you be the dungeon master. So she took up the mantle, and my original character for that campaign was a gnome ranger named Acorn. And she's kind of like super, naive and just trusts everybody. And, she's the playful one, but she also kind of gets everybody into trouble because she just like is a blabbermouth and just starts explaining things. And she doesn't understand money. She doesn't understand, social cues, because she's raised in the wild. And that was fun to play for like the first couple of sessions, but then it kind of got, not that it was getting old, but I wanted some, I don't know, more grit, more meat to my play, and not just play a cutesy woodland dweller. Well, I mean, it is fun, but I wanted someone that's kind of a badass. So that's why I created this guy. This guy has no name as of yet, so I just call him Green Flameblade, because that's what he uses. And no name. I told Allie that she can name him whatever she wants, or the other people in the group can name him whatever they want. I'm open to whatever. So as you can see here, it's a little bit more rendered, and I don't like it. It just wasn't clicking. It's too much. I don't know. I was trying to do some lighting passes, trying to make things look shiny, trying to give the light off of that. I tried maybe I'll do a color correction on the whole thing. Maybe I'll do some green light coming from the bottom. No, It just looks stupid. This whole thing is stupid. So I get rid of it. See, I try some shadows. Try making them dirty. It's just not looking good. And I thought, you know what I need to do? I need to add some white to the tips of the flames. That was actually a good idea. The rest of these ideas, not so great. But you'll see at the end, I don't go with these. What else to talk about? We got flames, correcting things. Here we go. The white passes. Yeah, looks good. So at the end of whenever I'm doing a little bit more of these more rendered pieces, or try to be more rendered, I always go with kind of a color pass at the end, which is just it's like I just I create a new layer on top of everything, fill it completely with one color, and then I set the layer to color, which is basically turns everything like shades of that color. It's kind of like a black and white, but only in that color. And then I gradually lower the opacity down to like 25%. And then after I do the opacity at 25%, then I just kind of color shift until it kind of fits right. Usually going with like a pinkish or reddish, sometimes even a purplish or bluish if I'm trying to make it at night. For this one, I was messing with all kinds of colors and nothing was working. So I left it off. But then I did try to put some green in the background, and a little bit more green highlights here and there, especially behind the flames and around his hand. And I think that turned out pretty well. As you saw like a few minutes ago, I went back through and had to redo my neck on the character. But yeah, here's the finished product. Here are the roughs for the final posing. Here are the flats, and you'll see the patches on the bottom of it. And here is the final. And again, thank you so much for watching and listening to me ramble on. And we'll see you next time. If you're looking for me on the internet, these are the places where you can find me.